My name's Eric, I'm 34, and I've always been the quiet one in the family. The one who shows up early, stays late to clean up, remembers birthdays, and keeps the peace. I'm not dramatic. I don't yell. I don't throw fits. I just do what needs to be done. That's probably why it took me so long to realize how thoroughly I was being taken for granted by my own parents. Growing up, I thought we were a pretty typical middle-class family. We lived in a cozy brick house on a quiet street in Ohio, 3 bedrooms, 1.5 bathrooms, a decent yard, and a little maple tree I planted when I was 10 that still stands taller than the roof. That house meant the world to me. It wasn't a mansion or anything, but every memory I had, snowball fights with my brother Jake, my high school graduation photos on the porch, my late dog Max sunbathing in the backyard, was tied to that home. And for years, I assumed, naively, that sentimentality was shared. Jake is 2 years younger than me, and to be fair, he wasn't always the golden child. But after he dropped out of college, came back home, and somehow landed a job through one of Dad's old golf buddies, things shifted. Suddenly, he was the responsible one, even though he still lived at home well into his late 20s and rarely paid rent. Meanwhile, I moved out, paid my own way through community college, and landed a remote tech job that I worked hard to grow into a 6-figure income. And even though I was the one who got out and built something, they always acted like Jake was the one they could count on. It stung, but I kept telling myself that parents aren't perfect. Maybe they just saw him as the one who needed more help. Over time, I started taking on more responsibilities than I probably should have. When Mom broke her hip, I was the one who paid for the in-home nurse. When the roof started leaking, I quietly wired $8,000 to my dad to get it fixed before winter. And when I found out their property taxes were overdue 1 year and they were close to default, I stepped in and started covering them annually. I didn't ask for recognition. I didn't expect a thank you card. I just figured they're my parents. It's what you do. But this past summer, something shifted in me. Maybe it was burnout. Maybe it was therapy finally making me reflect on some things, but I started feeling uneasy about the imbalance. The guilt trips when I couldn't visit. The silence whenever I talked about work. The way they always made excuses for Jake when he forgot birthdays or flaked on holidays. Still, I didn't say anything. Not until I visited for Dad's birthday in July. We were sitting around the kitchen table, me, Jake, and our parents, eating store-bought cake when the topic of the house came up. Dad laughed and said something like, "Well, Jake'll have his hands full with this place one day." I froze. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep it light. Mom waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, don't get sensitive. We're just saying it'll probably go to him when we're gone. He's here, you're not." I blinked. "You mean in the will?" I asked. Jake snorted. "Well, yeah, obviously. It'd be weird if you got it. You don't even live here anymore." I looked at my parents. Neither of them said anything. No denial. No explanation. Just a shrug from Dad like it was a done deal. I don't remember much of the rest of that night. I know I drove home in silence. I didn't sleep. I just kept picturing that house, my room, my tree, my memories, and the way they casually erased me from it. And it wasn't just about the house. It was about the years I spent pouring time, money, and energy into that family while they quietly decided I didn't matter enough to even be considered. A week later, I went through my records and checked the auto-pay settings for their property taxes. Sure enough, the annual installment was set to go through in 3 weeks. I hovered over the cancel button for a minute. Then I clicked it. I didn't make a dramatic announcement. I didn't send a bitter text. I just stopped. And for 3 weeks, silence. No calls. No questions. Just quiet. Then, on a random Thursday, I got a text from my dad. It just said, "We got a notice." That was it. No hello. No punctuation. No acknowledgement that I'd been covering those bills for years. No apology. Just a vague panic. I stared at the message for a minute, reread it twice, and then typed back, "Congrats, homeowner." They didn't reply. That should have been the end of it. But of course it wasn't. Because when you stop playing the role everyone expects of you, the whole script falls apart. And some people really don't like that. What came next was worse than I expected. The guilt, the manipulation, the entitlement. But I was done playing the quiet one. The next day, my mom called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail, and her tone was a mix of forced calm and poorly disguised irritation. "Hi, honey, we got a letter from the county saying our taxes weren't paid. I don't know if something went wrong on your end. Maybe the bank messed up? Anyway, If you could just take care of that, that'd be great. Your dad's really stressed. Call me back, okay? I listened to it twice. Not once did she ask if I had still been paying them. Not once did she acknowledge that maybe, just maybe, I had a reason to stop. No gratitude. No ownership. Just an expectation. As if I was a service provider they forgot to tip. I didn't call back. 2 days later, Jake messaged me on Facebook of all places, which told me how unserious he was. Hey man, mom says you're being petty about the taxes. I told them I'll take over payments from now on, so no biggie. But just saying, it's not cool to ghost them like that. I stared at the message. Petty? Petty? This was the same guy who used to borrow money from me in college and never paid it back. The same guy who had the nerve to call me the disappointment during Thanksgiving 2 years ago because I didn't want to take tequila shots before dinner. The guy who couldn't hold a job for more than a year unless dad pulled strings. And I was being petty? I left the message on read. A week passed. Then came the email from dad. Subject line, you need to grow up. I read it 3 times. It was short, but every word was soaked in the smugness of someone who thought they were above accountability. Eric, I don't know what's gotten into you, but this isn't how family behaves. We've always supported you, and if you wanted to be in the will, you should have said something. We thought Jake was the logical choice to inherit the house since he's nearby and can maintain it. But now you're just being spiteful. The taxes are late and we might face penalties because of your tantrum. Grow up and do the right thing. No, thank you for the past 5 years of tax payments. No acknowledgement that I had fronted their roof repair, their nurse, their plumbing issues. No sense of shame. Just entitlement. And something in me snapped. I opened a new Word doc and typed every major expense I had covered for them over the past 10 years. It came out to a little over $68,000. I didn't send it. I wasn't trying to be reimbursed. I just wanted to see it. Because for so long I had gaslit myself into believing that family is about selflessness, about sacrifice, about giving without keeping score. But now I could see it clearly. I had been keeping the lights on in a house I would never be welcome in again. That same day, I called the county office and asked to have my name removed from the tax record as a responsible party. It was a quick process. The woman on the phone sounded surprised when I told her I wasn't the owner. Then why were you paying? She asked. I paused. That's a great question. 3 days later, I got another text from my mom. This time, it was longer. Eric, I don't know what your father said, but you're being hurtful. This is still your home. You're always welcome. We just thought Jake would be the better choice to manage the house since he's local. That doesn't mean we love you any less. Please don't punish us like this. I didn't answer. Because I knew what "you're always welcome" really meant. It meant I could come visit on holidays, sit at the table like a guest, maybe even sleep in the old guest room if Jake wasn't using it. But that tree I planted? That backyard I mowed every summer? The hallway where I learned to ride a bike indoors during a thunderstorm? That wasn't my home anymore. That belonged to Jake now. And I wasn't going to keep paying for someone else's inheritance while being treated like a footnote. 2 more weeks went by. Then I got another call, this time from an unknown number. I didn't answer, but the voicemail was unmistakably my father's voice, this time far less composed. I hope you're happy. We got a second notice. If this doesn't get paid, the county will put a lien on the house. Do you want that? Over a misunderstanding? Jake's trying, but he's overwhelmed. Call me. Ah, so now it was a misunderstanding. I took a screenshot of the voicemail transcription and saved it. Not for revenge. Not even for proof. Just so I'd never forget what they sounded like when the consequences finally started catching up. When the decades of favor trading and silent expectations turned into real-world outcomes. I wasn't punishing them. I was simply stepping aside. But here's where things took a turn I didn't expect. Last weekend, I got a call from my cousin Tessa. She never gets involved in family drama. She's a nurse in Michigan, works long shifts, minds her business. But her voice was sharp when I picked up. Eric, why didn't you tell me what was going on? I blinked. What do you mean? She sighed. And Sharon, your mom, called my mom sobbing. Said the house might be taken. That you were refusing to help. That Jake was doing everything himself. But I know Jake. He can barely manage his own apartment. So I did a little digging. You paid their taxes for how long? 5 years, I said flatly. Yeah, she said. And they're acting like you're the villain. I didn't reply. I didn't need to. Because for the first time in a long time, someone in the family saw it. But that wasn't the shocking part. The shocking part came 2 days later when I got a message from a realtor. Subject? Interested in selling? The Johnson property is under review for listing. I blinked, reread the message, then saw the address. My childhood home. I didn't know what game they were playing. I didn't know if it was a bluff, a cash grab, or a last-ditch attempt to squeeze money from a house they no longer had the means to maintain. But I did know one thing. I wasn't going to help them clean up the mess this time. And when I saw the Zillow page go live 2 days later, I knew this was far from over. I stared at the Zillow listing like it was a betrayal in 1080p. There it was, 3 beds, 1.5 baths, charming family home in a quiet neighborhood, listed for just under $230,000. There were fresh photos too. Jake must have taken them on his phone. The kitchen had been scrubbed, the garden trimmed, the maple tree cropped at the top of the frame like it was just background noise instead of the only thing I ever planted that survived. But what hit me wasn't just that they were selling it. It was that they didn't tell me. Not a word, not a call, not even a vague email. They were trying to erase me completely from the story of that house. And they almost got away with it, until the realtor made the mistake of thinking I was still on the property record. I called the realtor back. I kept it polite. Hi, yes, I got your message about the Johnson property. Just curious, who authorized the sale? There was a pause. It's being sold by the legal owner, Mr. Jake Johnson. We were under the impression he inherited it. Inherited? I asked. From whom? Both parents are still alive. Silence again. Then a slightly awkward chuckle. Well, I believe there was a quitclaim deed filed earlier this year, ownership transferred to him directly. Does that sound right? It did. And it explained everything. They hadn't just planned to leave the house to Jake. They'd already given it to him. Months ago. Probably while I was wiring them money for a plumbing issue, and they were nodding along, thanking me through gritted teeth. I hung up the phone and sat with that. Not angry. Not even surprised anymore. Just hollow. They had written me off long before I ever stepped back. That night, I didn't sleep. Instead, I dug through emails, paperwork, bank statements, everything I had that tied me to that house. Over the years, I'd paid for repairs, pest control, winterization services, and those dreaded property taxes. Most of it was verbal, sent over PayPal, Venmo, or just quietly handled over the phone. But some of it, like the $8,000 roof payment, was on paper. Receipts. Confirmations. I wasn't planning to sue or claw back money, but I wanted to be ready. Because if they were going to treat me like a stranger, they weren't going to get the benefit of my silence too. 3 days later, the house was officially pending, meaning they had an offer, meaning they were about to cash out on a house I had kept upright for half a decade. Then came the text. From Jake. Yo, you might hear from Mom and Dad soon. The deal hit a snag. Something about prior lien concerns? Not sure. You didn't file anything weird, right? I laughed. Out loud. First time in days. No, I hadn't filed a lien. I didn't need to. But the house had gone so long unpaid before I stopped covering the taxes that the county had placed a tax certificate on it. Something I'd already warned Dad about 2 years ago. Of course, he hadn't listened. Probably assumed I'd keep bailing them out forever. Then Mom called. This time, she didn't bother with niceties. Eric, we're in trouble. We can't sell the house until this is resolved. There's a whole bunch of red tape and interest fees, and why didn't you tell us sooner? I held the phone in silence for a beat. Then I said, I did. You just weren't listening. She tried to pivot. We didn't mean to hurt you. This was supposed to be easier for everyone. Jake's here. He can take care of things. But he didn't, I said. I did. For years. She went quiet. I could hear her breathing, small and shallow. I imagined her standing in the kitchen, near the cracked window I'd paid to replace, probably holding the phone in her left hand, like always, nervously twisting the cord even though it was wireless. I don't want this to tear us apart, she said finally. Family is more important than money. I almost smiled. Then maybe you shouldn't have given him the house behind my back. A beat of silence. Then she said something I wasn't expecting. We didn't think you'd care. You never said anything. You've always been so independent. And there it was. The root of everything. The curse of being the quiet one. The reliable one. The one who doesn't need help, so people stop offering it. The one who gives without asking, so people stop seeing it as a gift and start seeing it as a given. I ended the call soon after. Politely. Calmly. But I made one thing clear before I hung up. I'm not your safety net anymore. The sale stalled. The realtor called again, more cautious this time. Wanted to know if I'd be pursuing legal action or if I was going to cause any delays on my end. I told him no, I wasn't filing a lien, but that any buyer should do their due diligence on what unpaid services and debts might be attached to the home. That was enough to slow things down. A new inspection was ordered. The title company flagged the prior issues. And as of yesterday, the buyer walked. The house was back on the market. And Jake? He messaged me again this morning. You happy now? You ruined everything. I didn't reply, but I bookmarked the listing. I waited. For 3 more weeks, the house sat on the market. Price dropped by $10,000. Then another $5,000. Still no bites. The local housing market had cooled, and that tax certificate was like a shadow hanging over everything. Eventually, the county would either demand full payment plus fees or begin the process of seizing it. But Jake and my parents were still scrambling, still hoping some miracle buyer would show up, pay in cash, and not ask too many questions. Meanwhile, I got on with my life. Therapy helped. So did disconnecting. I blocked Jake. I muted my parents' numbers and email accounts. I even set up a special folder in my inbox called Emotional Landfill, where every message from them auto-forwarded without a ping. Out of sight, out of guilt, out of reach. And for the first time in years, I started doing things for me. I flew to Seattle to see an old friend I hadn't caught up with since college. I bought myself a keyboard and started teaching myself piano, something I'd always wanted to do but never felt I had the space for. I stopped checking Zillow. But then, in early March, I got a text from Tessa again. Hey, just a heads up. The house is gone. I froze. Gone? I clicked the link she sent and saw it. The listing had been removed, but not because it sold. It had been pulled off the market entirely. I dug deeper and found the county records. There it was. Unpaid taxes going back 2 years, penalties stacked, a forfeiture process officially initiated. The county had flagged the property as at risk, and unless the full amount was paid within 60 days, it would go to auction. They had run out of time. The next day, I got a voicemail from my dad. This one, I did listen to. Not out of curiosity, but for closure. Eric, we made a mistake. I admit it. I thought we could handle everything, but it's too much. Jake isn't ready for this. He's not what we thought he'd be. And I know we didn't treat you fairly. But please, don't let this happen. We could lose the house. Your house too. It's part of you. Please, son, help us fix it. He sounded small, defeated. But for once, I didn't feel the old pull, the guilt, the aching responsibility, the need to step in and clean up their mess. I just sat there, letting his words hang in the air like dust in sunlight. I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt anymore. I was done. But the story doesn't end there. Because 2 weeks later, something unexpected happened. I got a call from the county treasurer's office. A woman named Denise. She asked if I was Eric Johnson and if I had been a past contributor to the taxes on the Johnson property. I confirmed that I had. She then said something that stopped me cold. Under new amendments to our recovery process, you may be eligible to purchase the property directly before it goes to auction. Since you were a contributing payer on the parcel and not compensated, you're classified as a private stakeholder. You have 14 days to make an offer. I was stunned. You're telling me I could buy the house outright? Yes, she said, at the owed amount, which is currently $19,472. I asked her to send the documents. I spent the next 2 days reading every page. I even hired a real estate attorney to confirm it was real. It was. So I made the offer. Quietly. Legally. No drama. No announcement. The house was mine within the month. Not through inheritance. Not through gift. But through purchase. I became the legal owner of my childhood home on April 17th. And I didn't tell my family. I didn't need to. 3 days later, Jake drove by the property and saw the notice on the door. Property transferred. Vacate within 30 days. He called me 6 times. Then Mom. Then Dad. I didn't pick up. Instead, I mailed them a letter. Not a long one. Just a single page. Dear family, for years, I poured myself into that house and into you, without being asked, acknowledged, or appreciated. When you gave it away without a conversation, you made your choice. I've made mine. The house is mine now. Legally, fully, and without strings. I didn't steal it. I didn't cheat. I just stopped cleaning up after people who saw me as a backup plan. You have 30 days to remove anything you want from the property. After that, the locks change. I wish you well. I had the letter delivered via certified mail. I have no idea how they reacted. I didn't care. On the 31st day, I drove over. The house was quiet, empty. No cars, no signs of life. They'd taken the essentials, left behind a few things: old garden tools, a dusty lamp, a box of photo albums that must have been forgotten or ignored. I walked through every room. It felt different. The energy had changed. It wasn't warm or familiar yet. It was quiet, like a house waiting to breathe again. I went to the backyard. The maple tree I planted when I was 10 had grown tall and thick, leaves beginning to bud in the early spring light. I stood beneath it for a long time. Then I got to work. Over the next 3 months, I gutted the place, repainted every wall, ripped out the stained carpet in the bedrooms, and replaced it with hardwood. I hired a landscaping crew to bring the backyard back to life, and I planted flowers around the base of the maple tree. A little memorial, I guess, to the boy I used to be, the one who thought love was earned by being useful. And when it was done, I didn't throw a housewarming party. I didn't post pictures on Facebook. I just sat on the front porch one Saturday morning with a cup of coffee, listening to birds and feeling the kind of peace that only comes when you know you've finally put something behind you. A month later, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address, but the handwriting was my mother's. Inside was a photograph. It was of me, age 10, dirt on my jeans. A tiny maple sapling in front of me, barely up to my knees. I was smiling, proud, hopeful. There was a note on the back. I didn't know how to say sorry. I still don't. But I remember this day. And I hope, one day, you'll remember it too. I didn't cry. I just tucked the photo into the drawer by the front door. Somewhere I'd see it, but not every day. A reminder that some roots grow deep, even in rocky soil. I haven't spoken to my parents or Jake since, but I live in that house now, and it finally feels like home. I've always been the one who did everything right. I worked hard, kept my head down, and did what I was supposed to. But no matter how much I tried, I was never quite good enough in my family's eyes. My sister, Lisa, on the other hand, seemed to have everything handed to her. She was always the favorite, the one who could do no wrong. Lisa and I were close growing up, or at least I thought we were. But as we got older, things started to shift. I noticed that every family event, every holiday, every celebration, she was the one getting all the attention. She was the one who could do no wrong, while I was the one who seemed to always be in trouble, always disappointing someone. It wasn't that I was a troublemaker. I wasn't. But if anything went wrong, I was always the first to take the blame. Lisa never had to deal with that. In fact, she didn't seem to deal with anything at all. Life came easy to her, while I was stuck constantly trying to prove myself. So, when she asked if she could move in with me for a while, I should have seen it as a red flag, but I didn't. I felt like this was my chance to have some real sister time. Maybe, just maybe, if I helped her out, she'd realize how much I'd been there for her all these years. First, it wasn't that bad. Lisa was only supposed to stay with me for a couple of months while she looked for a place of her own. I didn't mind. After all, she was my sister, and family should stick together, right? But then, things started to change. She'd leave for work in the morning, but I'd come home after a long day to find the apartment a mess. Dirty dishes everywhere, her shoes scattered across the living room, and her clothes left in piles on the couch. She didn't even bother to clean up after herself. And when I asked her about it, she would just shrug it off, saying she was tired or had too much going on. I tried to keep my cool. After all, I didn't want to start a fight. But deep down, I was starting to resent the situation. She was living with me rent-free, taking up space, and it felt like she wasn't even trying. Meanwhile, I was struggling to make ends meet. I had my own bills to pay, my own life to juggle, and here she was, treating my home like a hotel. It didn't help that our parents seemed to ignore the issue entirely. They were just so happy that Lisa was living with me. They didn't understand how much I was giving up to make this work. They didn't see the resentment building inside me, the frustration that kept growing every day. One evening, after a particularly exhausting day, I came home to find Lisa sprawled out on the couch, watching TV, with half a pizza box beside her. She hadn't even bothered to clean up. I could feel my blood boiling, but I didn't say anything right away. I was tired of being the bad guy, but then she said it. "Oh, hey, by the way, Mom and Dad want me to stay a little longer. They're fine with it, so I figured I could just crash here for another few months." I froze. Another few months? I had already given her a place to stay for over 4 months. My patience was running thin, and now it felt like my own family was taking advantage of me. I couldn't just sit back and let them push me around anymore. The truth was, I was tired. Tired of always being the one to sacrifice. Tired of always being the one to give in. It wasn't fair. I was working my butt off just to get by, and Lisa was living here rent-free, without a care in the world. That night, after she went to bed, I sat down and started thinking. This wasn't just about the mess or the lack of respect. It was about everything. The years of feeling like I wasn't enough, the way my family always took Lisa's side no matter what. They had never been there for me like they had been for her. And now, here I was, supporting her again, and it felt like nothing had changed. I had to make a decision. The next day, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had to change. I couldn't keep going like this, feeling invisible in my own home, feeling like I was being taken advantage of. I had put up with Lisa living here for months, all while trying to maintain my own life, but it wasn't fair anymore. After work, I walked into the apartment, and there she was, lounging on the couch again. I didn't even get a hello. It was like she didn't care that I had a long day. She didn't care about anything, really, except her own comfort. I couldn't hold it in anymore. "Lisa, we need to talk," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She glanced up at me, eyes still glued to the screen. "What's up?" She sounded so casual, so unbothered. "I'm not going to keep doing this. You need to move out. You've been here long enough, and I'm not going to let you stay here rent-free anymore," I said, my voice a bit more forceful than I intended. She blinked in surprise, then let out a little laugh. "What? Are you serious? You want me to leave?" "Yes. You've been here long enough, and I've asked you to pitch in, but you don't. You don't clean up, you don't respect the space. And I'm struggling to pay bills while you get to live here without a care in the world. I've had enough." For a moment, she didn't say anything. She just stared at me, her eyes narrowing. And then, in that casual way of hers, she said, "Well, you don't have to be so dramatic about it. I was just going to stay a little longer until I figured things out." "No, you weren't. You were planning to stay as long as you could. You're taking advantage of me, and I won't let you do that anymore." I couldn't believe I was saying it. This wasn't the sister I used to know. This was someone who thought they could walk all over me without any consequences. She stood up then, a little too quickly, and snapped, "I'm not some charity case, okay? I'm just trying to get my life together. Why do you have to make everything so difficult?" "I'm not making things difficult. You are," I replied, trying to keep my emotions in check. "I've been nothing but patient, but you've crossed the line. It's time for you to leave." Her face twisted in disbelief, and then it hit me. She had never once thought she'd have to leave. My sister had always been able to depend on others. Mom and Dad had always had her back, and now I was supposed to just keep supporting her like this. She let out a huff of frustration and grabbed her phone, then called Mom. I knew exactly what was coming. Mom would try to talk me out of it, tell me I was being harsh, and beg me to let Lisa stay longer. When she hung up, Lisa's face was red with anger. "Mom said I should talk to you about this. You're being unreasonable." "Unreasonable?" I was fighting to stay calm. "No, I've been patient. I've tried, but I'm done. You need to figure it out on your own. You can't keep relying on other people." She stood there for a moment, seething. I saw her calculating her next move, but she didn't say anything. Instead, she stormed off to her room, slamming the door behind her. The next few days were tense. Lisa barely spoke to me, and I could feel the walls closing in. I knew she was hurt, but honestly, I didn't care. The anger I had been bottling up for so long was finally starting to surface. I was tired of being the one who always gave in. And then, it happened. Mom and Dad called. I didn't answer at first. I wasn't in the mood to listen to their guilt trip. But after a few missed calls, I decided to pick up. "Why are you doing this?" Mom's voice was soft, but I could hear the disappointment. "Lisa just needs some help right now. She's going through a tough time." I was silent for a moment, letting the weight of her words sink in. "You've always taken her side, haven't you? No matter what. She's your perfect little girl, and I'm just the other one. The one you don't have time for." "That's not true, honey. You know we love you. But Lisa needs us right now, and you're being hard on her." "I've been hard on her for years, Mom, but she's never had to face the consequences of her actions. She doesn't clean up after herself. She doesn't pay rent. And yet she gets everything handed to her while I'm left to pick up the pieces. I'm done being the one who sacrifices everything. Mom sighed, clearly frustrated. We're just asking for a little more patience. Can't you be more understanding? I've been patient long enough. I can't keep doing this. I'm kicking her out. She needs to learn how to stand on her own feet. The phone went silent for a long moment, and when Mom spoke again, it was almost like she was pleading with me. Please don't do this. We're family. Don't turn your back on your sister. I'm not turning my back on her. I'm doing what's best for both of us. I hung up before I could hear more of her excuses. I didn't need to hear them. I was done. The days that followed were a blur of tension and frustration. Lisa barely spoke to me, and when she did, it was always some snarky comment or a backhanded remark. The calm I had once tried to maintain was now gone. I could feel the strain between us, and honestly, I didn't know how much longer I could take it. Then, one afternoon, she caught me in the kitchen, staring at the pile of bills I was trying to sort through. She stood there for a moment, watching me as I jotted down numbers, balancing accounts, trying to make sense of it all. I was exhausted. I hadn't even realized she was in the room until she finally broke the silence. You really think it's fair? Lisa asked, her tone more serious than usual. You're kicking me out over a few things. You don't understand what I'm going through. I didn't turn to face her. I couldn't. I was too upset, and I needed a moment to collect myself. But her words hit me harder than I expected. Was I being unfair? I took a deep breath before replying. You have no idea what I've been going through. I work all day, and when I come home, I find this place a mess. I'm struggling, Lisa, and you've had everything handed to you. I'm not going to keep cleaning up your mess while you just sit back and relax. Lisa scoffed, stepping forward. Oh, so now you're playing the martyr? Like I don't have my own problems? You don't even understand what I'm dealing with. I'm just trying to get back on my feet. You know what? Maybe I don't even need to be here anymore. Maybe you're right. I'll just go. Her words were like a slap to the face. After everything, she was acting like I was the one who had wronged her. She turned to walk out of the room, but I couldn't let it go that easily. No, Lisa. You don't get to walk away from this like it's nothing. You've been living here rent-free, and now you want to act like I'm the bad guy? No, I'm not letting you off the hook this time. She stopped, her back to me. I could see her shoulders tense, her anger simmering just below the surface. You think this is easy for me? She asked, her voice cracking slightly. I've had to deal with so much crap on my own, and now you're kicking me out, like I'm the one who's done something wrong. I took a few steps closer to her. You've been using me, Lisa. You haven't paid a single cent toward rent. You don't clean up after yourself, and you expect me to just keep letting it slide. I'm done being the one who has to give in. She turned around, her face contorted in disbelief. You're really serious about this, aren't you? Fine, but don't think this is the end. I'll find my own place. But you'll regret this, I swear. The look in her eyes made me pause for a moment. It was like she didn't even see the damage she'd caused. She was so wrapped up in her own issues that she couldn't even fathom how much she had taken from me. I'm not going to regret it, Lisa, I said, my voice steady, though inside I was seething. This is something I should have done a long time ago. She stormed out of the room, and I didn't hear from her for the rest of the evening. I didn't know what to expect next. Would she leave immediately? Or would she drag this out, trying to guilt-trip me into letting her stay longer? The next morning, I woke up to a text from Mom. It was one of those "we need to talk" kind of messages. I had been dreading this. I opened it hesitantly. Lisa told me what happened. I don't think you understand how hard she's been trying. She's been struggling with a lot, and we think you should give her more time. I stared at the message, feeling the weight of her words. I knew exactly where this was going. Mom would beg me to let Lisa stay longer, to be more patient, to keep giving and giving without ever asking for anything in return. But I had already made my decision. I wasn't going to let Lisa manipulate me anymore. I ignored the text and went about my day. It was time for me to focus on myself, to stop being the person who always put everyone else's needs first. For once, I was going to do what was best for me. Around noon, Lisa came into the living room, a suitcase in hand. She looked at me, but there was no apology in her eyes, no acknowledgement of what had just happened. It was like nothing had changed. "I'm leaving," she said flatly, "but don't think this is over. I'll figure things out. I'm not some charity case, okay?" I stood up, walking toward her slowly, trying to keep my emotions in check. "You're right. You're not a charity case. But you're also not my responsibility anymore. I hope you learned something from this." She scoffed, rolling her eyes, and without another word, she left. Just like that. As the door slammed behind her, a strange silence fell over the apartment. It was an eerie calm, like everything had finally come to a head, and now there was nothing left to do but wait. I stood there for a moment, staring at the door, still processing everything that had just happened. I had told myself it would be a relief, but the truth was, I wasn't sure how to feel. I'd spent so much time being the one who kept things together, trying to keep the peace, that now, with Lisa gone, I almost felt lost. For the next few days, there was a lot of radio silence. No text from Lisa, no phone calls from Mom. It was almost like the world had shifted, and I was suddenly in uncharted territory. Was this really the end of it? Would things go back to normal, or would I be forced to pick up the pieces of a broken family? The truth was, I wasn't sure I even wanted things to go back to normal. I had lived my whole life being the one who got overlooked, the one who was expected to be the understanding, patient one. It was exhausting. I'd spent so many years keeping the peace, doing what everyone else wanted, that I had lost sight of what I needed. But as much as I had convinced myself that I was better off without the drama, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was still caught up in it. That a few days after Lisa left, I got a call from Mom. I wasn't sure if I was ready to talk to her, but I answered anyway. "Honey, can we please talk?" Mom's voice was shaky, almost pleading. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I could already hear the guilt in her voice. "What do you want to talk about?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. "It's about Lisa. She's really struggling, and I think you need to help her. I know things got heated, but she's family, and we need to support each other." I closed my eyes, trying to stay calm. "I've supported her for months, Mom. She's had a free ride, and I'm done with it. You can't keep asking me to take her in when she doesn't even try to pull her weight. I've done enough." "But you're her sister. Family is supposed to stick together," she responded, her voice raising slightly. "You're breaking our family apart." I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. "No, Mom. She's the one who's been tearing things apart. You've always taken her side. You've always made excuses for her. I'm not doing that anymore." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing, like she was trying to find the right words. "I know you're angry, but you have to understand. Lisa needs us right now. She's in a bad place. I can't just turn my back on her." "I'm not turning my back on her. I'm making her face the consequences of her actions," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "She needs to learn how to stand on her own 2 feet. Another long pause followed, and when Mom finally spoke, her voice was softer. "I understand you're hurt, honey, but you can't just cut her off like this. It's not healthy." I was quiet for a moment, letting her words settle. Was I being too harsh? Was I being selfish? It was hard to tell, but deep down, I knew I was making the right decision for myself. I wasn't going to let my sister's problems become my burden anymore. "I can't help her if she doesn't want to help herself," I said quietly. "I'm sorry, but I've made my choice." There was no response for a long time. Then, just before I was about to hang up, I heard Mom's voice again, small and defeated. "I hope you know what you're doing." "I do," I said, my heart heavy but resolute. And with that, I ended the call. I didn't feel any better. I didn't feel any worse. It was just done. But then, a couple of days later, I got a text from Lisa. I hadn't heard from her since she'd left, and I figured it was just another demand. Another plea for me to let her back in. I wasn't sure if I even wanted to read it, but curiosity got the better of me. "I know you're mad at me, but I've been thinking, and I realize you're right. I messed up. I shouldn't have taken you for granted. I'm sorry." I stared at the text for a long time. It was unlike anything I'd ever expected from Lisa. She'd never apologized before, and now, here she was, saying she messed up. Part of me wanted to believe it, to think that she had truly changed. But another part of me knew better. It was a one-time thing. A token apology because she had nowhere else to go. I didn't respond right away. Instead, I set my phone down and walked into the living room, needing a moment to process it all. Could I really trust her again? Could I really go back to being the person who gave in every time? Before I could think it through, my phone buzzed again. It was from Mom this time. Lisa's really struggling. She's not doing well. She says she's trying to find a place, but she's scared. I know you're upset, but please don't give up on her. I stared at Mom's message for a long time. The words blurred together, but the meaning was clear. She was asking me to forgive Lisa, to let her back in, to be the person who always picked up the pieces. The same cycle I had been stuck in for years. But I wasn't that person anymore. I had spent so much time trying to hold everything together, trying to keep peace in a family that had been falling apart for far too long. I had sacrificed so much, and for what? So Lisa could continue to use me, so my parents could keep enabling her? I had finally reached the point where I couldn't give anymore. I put my phone down slowly, my heart heavy but resolute. I had made my decision, and nothing was going to change it. Later that evening, I got another text, this time from Lisa again. I hesitated before reading it. She wasn't going to let it go easily. I don't have anywhere else to go. Please, I'm really struggling. You're my sister. I need you. The words hung in the air, and I felt that familiar tug of guilt. But it wasn't enough to change my mind. Not this time. I typed a response, my fingers moving with a calm certainty. It wasn't a response I wanted to send, but it was the one that needed to be said. I'm sorry, Lisa, but I'm done. You need to figure this out on your own. I've helped you more than enough, and I can't keep enabling your mistakes. You need to grow up. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The message felt cold, harsh even, but in the pit of my stomach, I knew it was the right thing to do. It was time for Lisa to face reality. It was time for me to stop being the crutch that propped up everyone else. The silence that followed felt different this time. There was no flood of apologies, no guilt trips, just emptiness. And for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. My phone buzzed again, and when I looked, it was a message from Mom. You've really made your decision, haven't you? She's family. I sighed, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. What more was there to say? No more explanations, no more pleading. I've made my decision, and I'm not changing my mind. I turned off my phone after that, not bothering to read the rest of the messages that might come in. The decision was made. I had to look out for myself now as the days passed. I didn't hear from Lisa again. It felt like the final chapter of a long, painful story. Maybe someday she'd understand. Maybe she wouldn't. But I knew one thing for sure. This time, I wasn't going to carry her burden any longer. I had chosen myself, and for the first time in a long time, I felt at peace. No more guilt. No more drama. Just me, moving forward. And that was enough.